Hello everyone, it is I, Frostlord Icy, your friendly neighborhood frost mage, coming to you from the world of Warcraft. And I just want to be real with this one. WoW is a pleasure of mine, though it's sort of like precious to me. WoW is precious to me. And I've just kind of been thinking of ways I can make this more produced, you know, making the list and cutting it, editing it all together, getting footage, but due to what WoW is to me, I figured something like this should just be raw. And I think to fully start this out, I might as well kind of give a little bit of backstory of my playing experience. So, I did start technically back in vanilla, where I'd play on my sister's computer, and I probably only got to about maybe level 5. So, again, may not be an exact experience, but it was still something. However, my true first time was in Burning Crusade, where I did manage to get myself to level 48 within the first free 30 minutes, 30 days that you get from purchasing the game, and that kind of ended. Then I did come back in Wrath of the Lich King near the end, where I finally managed to get to max level, get myself playing, and then I've kind of been playing almost non-stop for about the last 10 years. And a couple things that just kind of note too. I'm kind of one of those players who really never liked the grind. Even back when I was playing in BC, or when I came back in Wrath, I just couldn't wait to get to max level, regardless, because I saw what raids were, at least at the time, where there was 40 people all come together to take down massive challenges together. And that's what I wanted to do. Dungeons and raids. But raids more so. However, unfortunately, that's just that. Yeah, unfortunately, things have gotten much different with that regard. And so I've seen it. I'm not sure exactly when. I'm pretty sure I know exactly when, actually, I should say. Because I know exactly when it did change, when things started going downhill for it, and why people are leaving. And it's many reasons, actually. A lot of reasons. It's boring. It's the same old stuff over and over again with each new expansion. The only difference is different gear, different raids. But every time an expansion comes out, you level up some levels, then you can raid. As it kind of gets old over time, and as of course, since I'm just generally a dungeoner and a raider, leveling just was a hurdle for me to get over. And by the time I got to max level, it was relief over enjoyment, because I finally got to the point where I can actually start raiding. But more to the point of this video is, I'm thinking I can just probably set this up on YouTube or something to where it has a much better lifespan than on the forums. And when it comes to getting points across, I think inflection is something you have to be heard than trying to type out. But mainly just to this point, I think there's a couple things that they could change to make the game better. And I'm hoping that I can at least get some idea out there with this to... Here you go, cheers, Carson. Some ideas that might work, and hopefully I can talk with them or talk about them well enough to maybe even spark some ideas, or some people can throw it out there more, and what's the word? Darn it, I hate it when I keep forgetting words. And kind of like, look, here, this idea, do this. This works much better. If you put this in, it'll be a much better game, or whatever. And so I think we should begin, and I think the first thing I want to start with is talent trees, because not sure if I did mention, but yes, I have been playing Classic some, and I do kind of miss them, and I do see the points that people make, and how the trees gave you something to look forward to when leveling. But again, as I said, I wasn't much of a leveler, and I just wanted to get to the end game. So I'm not exactly on that boat there. However, I do see the point with it. And yeah, I think they can bring the trees back next to the talent blocks. The things that I think, the talent blocks were, I think, actually one of the best things they did in the game, because it makes a lot better chance to really change your gameplay over talent trees, because you can choose between 3 different talents on any talent row, and each one potentially, again, can change it. Whereas in talents, if we were to have something like that there, they'd have to be either far enough down a tree to be much more meaningful, and if they're not, then you're not gonna invest the talent points into it. But if there's any difference in it, okay, but yeah, that investment is actually one of the things that do make it much more difficult to have that kind of play choice difference. Is if you have a couple abilities like that, then if anything in that tree build is off, then that talent becomes, well, useless unless that talent's strong enough to make up for that difference. But again, here's where I think talent trees can make a return, where they can live next to the talent blocks. We just have to treat them like the Legion artifacts, where each level you do get a point, since a level you get a talent point, or a talent block point, I should say. But at the end, outside of maybe a couple spell choice differences, like my best example, of course, would be mages, and I have a very big soft spot for Frostfire Bolt. So yeah, like choosing between Frostfire Bolt or Flurry to change your rotation up a bit, or whichever one you want to use for Brain Freeze procs. Outside that, again, it's all the same. It's gonna fill up all the way full. There's no worry about picking the wrong talents, and it still helps with the feeling of your character growth, and the fact that as you collect each point, it will make you feel stronger in the world. You'll take less damage, you'll deal more damage, you'll heal more, or reduce the cooldowns on your spells more, or whatever else they can do, and give you another way you can get your spells and abilities outside of maybe going back to a system where you purchase them at the respective levels. So I think that's one way we can bring the talent trees back. And of course, making each point worthwhile at the same time, most likely. After that, I'm thinking another thing that we could probably do is also kind of... I have a soft spot for mana pools. The change in MOP to go from having mana pools based on intellect to static mana pools, it was okay change, something I kind of lived with, dealt with, but I do, especially since playing Classic, kind of miss watching my pool grow as I got more intellect and stronger gear. Kind of want to go back to that kind of system, but not to the level they do there, and make it to where you'll go extremely fast if you're not paying attention, but kind of give it a little bit of air there to where you potentially can. You know, having more mana gives you the chance to be able to cast much more freely overall. And letting that be an issue should not be an issue, especially as you get more gear and later in the game when gear is just so powerful that, well, you're going to have massive stats. And even on top of that, we're bringing a couple more stats back that I kind of miss. Spirit to increase the mana regeneration and all that jazz kind of worked. You had a choice between mana regeneration and more mana and spell power, though to be honest I think the change from spell power on gear to spell power based on intellect was a really good step forward, as even back then I was always wondering why intellect didn't increase spell powers in most things that did. And yeah, so that was one of the good steps forward. But again, I just missed the mana pools. And another thing too that we might be able to do is kind of bring back the ability to equip multiple kinds of weapons outside of, you know, being able to equip both axes and swords. What I mean is allow like warriors and rogues to equip bows again, and mages, priests, and warlocks being able to equip wands again, so that way we're not having to choose between a ranged weapon or a melee weapon. It would give those classes another way to hit things at ranged outside of, like for this one, like a heroic throw and a 6-second cooldown, which it also definitely would help out with loot management as far as gear drops go, because now every wand and every wand is not just going to go to whoever needs it. It's going to do that, but now if a wand drops, I can be able to need on it, and it won't necessarily go to waste as fast as it would without adding it back to the equip date. Why am I flying way past that? Oops. Makes I think I saw more on there. I need to make load go. And same with bows. So now that every time a bow or a crossbow drops, it's not going to just be going to no one, because either there's no hunters, or the only hunter that's there, or two hunters that's there already have a ranged weapon, or they're best in slot, and so now that's a loot piece that's now wasted. And even if they're just stat sticks, of course, stat sticks, it's understandable not to have stat sticks. It's a slot that you really never use, but at the same time, it's one of those things where things kind of feel a little bit more wasted outside of what they already do, I guess. Oops, wrong direction. I need to fix that. And then even on top of items too, you can even add something, because putting all the possible stats on gear, that was good. I actually not too upset about that, just for the fact that, well, now this plate piece can get used by anyone who does wear plate, whether it be an intellect user via a paladin or a strength user via warrior. Same with mail. So now you can kind of switch between specs without having to have an entire set of secondary gear in your bags, taking up precious bag space, which isn't quite as precious anymore. But yeah, still at this point, it's what, 19 pieces of gear roughly that you need to hold in your bags just to switch specs if you go from dealing DPS, if you're, like, for example, a shaman or a druid going from an agility-based DPS spec to an intellect-based healing spec. And potentially add those to weapons as well, because as a mage, I know, and probably other people know, you can't transmog between wands and daggers and staves and swords, except for the artifact weapon. And even then, it's still restricted for wands, which is understandable, but However, transmog aside, it's still, again, it falls on the same lines as bows and kind of wands, in the fact that that sword just dropped. Sure, it's good for, or I could say that sword or mace. Now I can have more than just swords. I have a hard on for swords, but that's just me. But if that sword or that mace drops, and the one class or spec that can use it, well, if it drops, they're there. Well, anyway, okay, back on the main track. If they're there, and it drops for them, we can, and they don't need it, well, again, it's one of those kind of situations where it's now a wasted piece. No one's going to get it, no one's going to use it, and it's just going to get DE'd or sold because no one needs it. It's not going to get used. Whereas if they add stats to the sword or mace for everyone that could use it, well, now if it drops, they can give it to that shaman who's healing, or that druid, or that priest, if it drops for that warrior tank, or death knight, instead of having to worry about not. At the same time, it does also lessen the need to make more gear. Yeah, you can, so that you can have like a different weapon with a different stat on it, sure. However, you don't have to make as much now, and at the same time, it helps settle the whole transmogrification issue that many classes may face, because the weapon that they may want to transmogrify can't drop in the kind of content that they're doing, i.e. mages in the current raid tiers. I don't think a single raid here drops an intellect sword, whereas it drops in dungeons. And in order to keep a sword transmog up to date, I have to keep doing Mythic Plus, of which I don't particularly want to do. I don't find them really fun. I don't like the whole timed aspect. But the fact is, I still have to do it at the higher levels and beat it in time or not, regardless, and hope that RNG shines on me so that I can keep my transmog proper and still be as close to best in slot as possible. And so yeah, I think that's more or less I can really say on that. Is either kind of just like add all stats to it, or ooh, unbound monstrosities. Nice. What the hell? Stupid game killing me. Yeah, it's just like add all stats to it, so that, excuse me, any class that can use it need it. Makes less need for it to have multiple copies or whatever. And yeah, that's really all I can say on that. Or hell, at least, if anything, again, the whole extra weapons, or both. Actually, both would be great. And perhaps moving on to the next thing, we can do danger in the game. Yes, as you're probably watching in the background, I'm sitting there just walking right through everything. Nothing is providing a modicum of challenge right now for me, and I just cannot die, and that's the way things have kind of been since I don't know when. Actually, I think it's starting in Legion, maybe? I don't know. I don't remember. My memory is kind of poor in that regard, but point still being, we just kind of need a little bit more of it. We need to have mobs be able to actually threaten our characters, or at least during the gearing process, leveling and gearing process, have to fight through. And I'm not saying go to the point in which we have, we have a situation where pulling 2 mobs equals certain death. By no means am I saying let's go back to that, but at least make it terrifying to pull more than maybe 3 tops. And I think the big change for that would come with just increasing the damage output of NPCs and mobs, and probably by at least 50%, maybe, without actually increasing the HP, because HP pools are pretty extensive right now. Because it's kind of annoying having to break through their HP pool, even when they're doing like 0 damage. And if they do a bit more damage, yeah, it'll make it a little bit harder. That's what it would do. Because now you have to focus less on just waiting for things to die and actually trying to kill things. So, just increase the danger factor. Would definitely help the game, I think. What else was there? My memory is a little fuzzy on a couple things. I'm gonna have to pull it up. So, yeah, you can probably enjoy this as I wait. Like, oh yeah, professions, duh. Anyway, professions is another thing that is even much closer to my heart too in the game, as my main is an enchanter, and one of my alts is a jewel crafter. And so my main seems to have an issue with it. The fact that it's like, I can only really up other characters, or even my own character's abilities, with just 2 enchants. It's very, very limited, and I do miss the days where I was able to enchant at least 6 pieces of gear with character-altering things. Same with jewel crafting, and having to wait for the odd prismatic socket RNG drop gives jewel crafting much, much less to be able to work with outside of rings, which no one really needs at this point, and the bind on pick up new ones, which is also kind of weird. I don't know. And I'm thinking if they just also bring back gem slot sets, bonuses. Yeah, you kind of go back to the whole, you keep the 3-color gem slots, and then give a little extra bonus for slotting them with the proper color. Something that I do miss, and I always tried doing, even if it wasn't exactly the best way to go. So during the time where all you ever had to do was slot your main stat. So I think, especially with the change stats, I think that Legion came about with, really actually would make gem slot bonus much more powerful, much more impactful, because secondary stats are much more powerful. And then kind of keep the same thing with it, in which you get, what is it, half the main stat or double the main stat you get with secondary stats, something like that. It's my brain's not exactly working properly, but yeah, where you can choose between a main stat gem and an off stat and a secondary stat gem, or a middle somewhere. I don't know. I can't remember exactly how gems all worked. I don't think I ever will. But, you know, of course you're on cooldown. Yeah, I think that's really all I can say is just kind of bring that back, because it was a different kind of gameplay. It gives enchanters more to do than just 2 items and hoping that 1 or 2 of those items drop during a world quest or a dungeon or a raid. Same with jewel crafting. And yeah, having to gem a gem slot mid-raid can be annoying, can be a bit tedious. And you always have to double check which is the best for you at any point in time. But I'm running the wrong way. It still gave a lot more difference than just hoping for a piece to drop that has a gem socket. And giving jewel crafters much more to do in the game and giving that economy back its boost it needs. Then we have... had it on my tongue. Alright, give me a second. It's literally right here. I can just pull it up much easier than it is to just sit here and try to keep everyone entertained, as that is my goal, though. Doodly doo. Doodly doo. Table and world quests. Well, we need to just merge it all together. It's about time they stop being separate. We need them together now at this point. Don't tell me I'm going to be losing disconnection. Okay. Yeah, it just didn't load. But yeah, we just need to merge them. Kind of go back to a daily system with it. That's, you know, besides the emissaries. Emissaries are fine, sure. But what you need to do to get them done is the world quest, and there's just too many of them. They're too important to miss at the beginning of the game, so that by the time you're done doing what they give you, you're burnt out for the rest of that point, and you're just waiting for the next thing to come out to give you more to work towards. And then the mission tables, of course, are just set and forget. That's it. You send your followers on their way, you wait a couple hours, find out if they succeeded or not. Shit. Find out if they succeeded or not. I hate failing in the game. But I do have a proposition that keeps it in there, keeps world quests there, and kind of brings back the whole daily feel. And sure, it's not exactly a multi-quest daily thing, but again, this is just ideas. It's not a multi-daily thing where you get like a daily quest that you can miss. Could be, you know, which I'll get to a little bit later. It's not exactly extremely important that you get it done. So you can miss it once or twice. But the daily is to do a set of quests, world quests for that day, whether it be for a specific zone or any world quest you choose. As long as you get like a certain set done, like 5 or 6 done. And the mission table is how you get your world quests. You'd go to the mission table, it would give you a list of like 10 or 12 quests that you can do. Of course you can't. I'll give you like 10 or 12 missions that you can do out in the world, the world quests. that are used to fulfill the daily quest, and which will also aid in less burnout, because you can choose to do every single one of them in a day, and they'll each give, and most likely can give, a much better reputation reward because there's less of them, but also reduces burnout, where at most, if you're really, really grinding, you're doing 12 in a day instead of... How big is this list again? Let's see. Yeah, well, that's also probably showing Broken Isles. Let's go here. Yeah, that many. And that's just in half the zones. But yeah, imagine only having 12 to do each day. If you really want to be on top of it, would definitely create less burnout over time.
This world is full of...
And of course, speaking on those and reputations, oh yeah, and the rewards can be a whole lot better too as far as everything else goes.
Remember your duty to hazard.
Because again, there's less of them, so the rewards can be a bit more meaningful. But yes, on the rewards, let's go ahead and talk about reputation. Something that kind of plays into flying, which I can get into a little bit later, which I'm going to get into. But reputation, it's fine, it's dandy, it's kind of working as intended. It's got the good stuff for professions hidden behind it, which is great because you don't necessarily need it, but it does help you in the long run because things cost less or you can get more of it. But it's still a pain, especially for people who have multiple characters, like me, for example, where I have this warrior who tends to tank for my guild's off group, who needs those professions to get their higher blacksmithing stuff, or my inscriptionist so that I can help with glyphs and, I guess, contracts, or much more importantly, yeah, I think it's really mostly about that. It's just, oh yeah, much more importantly, alchemists, someone who brings up an alchemist to help the raid group and has to grind all that rep again on their second character just so they can have the reputations or the recipes to not only make things cheaper, but be able to produce more and be able to help the guild more. So one thing we can add to it is bring back the Miss Pandaria commendations, where you get extra double the experience for your alts, but unlike Mr. Bandara, we don't give it to you at Revered, we give it to you at Exalted, showing that you've put the work for it to get yourself to that position, to have that kind of trust in them, or whatever. You know, gives you something to work towards even more as far as it goes, and it also gives alts who come in a little bit later not as much grind to get it done. And speaking on that, actually I might have a bit more on there. Yeah, and then of course, yeah, bring back the need for reputations to not be so mandatory for anything. Which I don't think they really are, except for, you know, like a tabard, mounts, profession stuff. Well, the only thing that's really required for is flying. And I can get into that about now. Flying, yes, has been a burden to Blizzard since they introduced it. It's killed world PvP because now people are flying above ground where it's safe instead of on ground where gankers can gank you because you're lower level than them. Or you're AFK. Which, funny enough, happens on live, but
This battle is far from over.
and I just bring on Pathfinder and the issues that it does present. Is she supposed to fly me, or am I just supposed to run? I think I'm supposed to run here. But yes, the problem that it presents is that you're bound to being unable to fly until you've reached revered with every reputation from the launch of the game. And then you have to wait until the next patch comes out that brings out more factions, and you have to get revered with those factions in order to get flying. And that adds in burnout. You have to, shouldn't really say forced because you're not actually forced to do it. But in order to have the convenience of flying, especially in a time when you've done everything, you've ran across the world God knows how many times, not only to get the reputations to their max, but just because you've had to, you've been forced to. Well, why not just build on flying instead of trying to remove it? Allow Pathfinder to remain, but in a much more subtle way. Like, potentially lowering flight speed a little bit in the new zones, as one of the reasons why you can't fly is that the factions aren't quite used to you. You're still a stranger to them, so they're not going to really allow you to come in unencumbered, which is why you're running on the ground first, outside of proper exploration, as they would call it. And then, of course, as you get exalted with everyone, you get Pathfinder to be able to fly back at normal speed. And yes, I can now see in like the comments, but like, well, why? I should be able to go at normal speed. I'm flying at this speed in every other zone. Well, that's not the point. The point is that lore-wise, you're not exactly trusted, and you're a stranger in new lands, which is why you got to be a little bit more careful, fly a little bit slower, so that you don't necessarily bring too much attention to yourself. And it also, again, allows Pathfinder to remain in the game, allows flying to be implemented into the story, which, again, should be sort of like an end of the leveling experience thing. Like, you get a quest somewhere near the end where a person will give you an item that you can turn in at your continent leader to earn the ability to fly when you are friendly with the new factions, or hell, revered if they really want to go that far. And that's just with the initial faction, so you're not having to wait a year down the road to get the actual ability to fly, and then, of course, having to grind that reputation out just to do it. Definitely helps with the burnout issue. And then, of course, people are able to fly, and they're not able to fly from the very start, so that they have to explore on the ground, and then they're able to fly halfway through the expansion as they finally finish off their reputation grind to be able to fly. And potentially exploring things maybe can be in there. Not sure if that much that really applies. Could still apply a lot. What do I know? It's just an idea or a thought process. It's just kind of like my idea of how I can keep flying in while and Pathfinder without really encompassing the player base, and the fact that it's like, no, you can't fly, you can't fly, just wait until a year later when everything's already stagnant and you have nothing else really to look forward to. I think really the last... Oh yeah, we've got more things I want to talk about. One thing I'm going to save for majorly last is it can be highly debated, and I kind of want to have a much better... Shit, you're hurting me. What the fuck? I'm going to heal with you. Real quick. Yeah, artifact gear. At this point in the game's life, well, at least after these couple last expansions, I think we do need to take a step back from that. It is an awesome idea to have this item of legend or weapon of power or something to aid you in fighting your enemies, but the implementation just isn't quite right. It's not there. It's too grindy, too boring. And one of the big problems about it is, again, in order to have its full potential for the content you're trying to do, you have to grind it out. And the difference between someone who's had the chance to grind it out and a new player generally turns out to be pretty massive. Going as far as being, or at least in current numbers, almost a 2 to 5,000, or I shouldn't say that, like percentage wise, like a 5 to 15% difference in output or survivability, because you have the extra effects of that artifact weapon, whereas someone who's starting out doesn't. Like, even pure example, this character with only 2 essence slots is in no way going to be comparable to someone who has all 3, and I'm pretty sure I can get a good extra 5% to 10% output increase just by getting that 3rd slot. And then on top of that, having to grind the, at least in this item, having to grind the essences ranks, which also play a huge difference in output. Because, for example, my condensed life force on this character is only rank 2, which means I'm missing out on that extra, what is it, 5% haste and 5% damage bonus that it provides me. Yeah, each time my Guardian of Azure cast spell, I gain 2% haste, stack up to 5 times, and then whenever an Azurite Spike deals damage, all damage I deal against target by 5%. Yeah, so I'm losing that 5% damage increase and that 10% haste just because I don't have rank 3, and in order to get that rank 3, I have to go through the Emerald Palace at least, well, for this character now, I'll just do it this way. Alright, I just have to go through the Emerald Palace on, oh, she already killed those ones, so she's only going to get 3 in the next one. Yeah, I'm going to get the rank 3, should be able to get the rank 3 next week on this character. But, again, it's still the point that this is the 3rd character I've had to do that on. I am definitely not going to be getting Blood of the Enemy on this character, especially rank 2 or rank 3. Or I might, just it's going to be a long time while, because that is a grind. That is a massive, massive grind. And it really, what really makes it harder is that you have to rely on your battleground groups not sucking, so that you actually can get the honor to actually go up in a decently paced manner. And if this ends up being this character's best in slot, well, now there's no way this character is going to be even remotely capable of keeping up with someone who's done that grind. And it's the same with a lot of these. You know, some of them I just cannot get. I'm tired of doing the grind for. And so that's one of those things where if we don't you don't necessarily have to make them account bound. Or if you get rank 3 on one character, you have rank 3 on every single one of them. Just maybe for a couple of them. But back to the main point. Well, it's just a rant on that whole thing. But back to the main point is that I think we're just done with them. We don't need them anymore. They don't really... They're just a system that's not really well implemented. That's really the best way to say it, huh? And they're lackluster. As I said before, they're just boring. You either have max power, somewhere in the middle, or no power. And again, the difference is just so massive if you don't have it all ground out. And if you have to grind it 3 times over, 4 times over, 5 times over, just so you can keep your character up to par, it definitely is one of those things that burns you out. And there's a couple of creators that I do watch that are burnt out on it. They don't want to do that grind anymore because they've done it already. They're done with it. And going back to Classic, even though that's a huge grind, it's a different game entirely. And without that, kind of like it more because it's just a straight gear your character up, enchant your gear, and you're good. You don't need to worry about making sure this one piece of loot or one piece of gear is up to par. If something drops, it's better. Equip it, enchant it, gem it, you're done. We need to go back to that, I think. Definitely would help with that. Would help make the game better. And I think just to round this off, because this is probably a long video, and one that's... I've had to actually talk to myself, of course, because I don't have many people to really mull it over until probably this. And it's something that kind of has come up with a couple of creators I watch, and people kind of talk about in the comments is like, should we do this? If they squish levels, blah, blah, blah. But I think, yeah, in the long run, why not? In fact, I think it would actually be better for the game's long-term survivability to do a level squish, potentially, outside of leaving a max level, like, say, an arbitrary number of 120. But the next expansion, if it comes out without implementing a level squish, is going to make us gain more levels. It's just the way expansions work. Unless they don't, again, leaving us at 120, but we have to grind reputation or do every quest in order to unlock the raid so that we can do it. And then we get to the same point of the difference in power between someone who's freshly 120 and someone who is, 6 raid tiers in is now so humongous, and you have to have so much catch up for them to even be remotely takeable in new stuff. It's quite daunting. At the same time, leveling over 120 levels is also kind of daunting, especially since the leveling experience, as far as I've read, isn't quite as exciting because they've tried to focus too much on the end game. However, even if they were to manage to make the leveling process a whole lot more fun or involved, or in a way that... I wonder if I can actually solo this. I have to do it on heroic. Don't think I can on heroic. I'll do it on normal then. Oh yeah. There'll be over 120 levels. And even if they make the questing so grand that the 120 levels is nothing, you still run into the situation to where it becomes stagnant, even for those new players. Because anyone who's been through that more the times than one or twice, they've already done it. They've already seen it. It's now just arbitrary things they got to go through. And it'll have to keep getting revamped every expansion, potentially, or every few expansions, so that it does... Oh, I won't be able to sell that. That's... Oh, that's mythic only, isn't it? Something I want to try. But yeah, it becomes stagnant. You have to probably refine it every expansion or every couple expansions, just for the fact that, again, there's so many levels to go through, and especially for new people. The old systems aren't, maybe not quite up to par. So here's where the level squish comes in. We have everything squished down in half. We make the now current highest level 60 instead of... Oh, there's a heroic version. Sweet. Instead of 120. Now you only have to go through 60 levels. And we can... And yeah, go ahead. Make the levels take that little bit longer. Keep it engaging a bit. But kind of keep the same amount of time it would take to get from 1 to 120, the same as 1 to 60, maybe with a little less, just in case for those people who don't want to, who want to push past it because they want to get to the raids, and that's because that's what their focus was, like mine. Don't have to worry about spending so much time leveling that they give up. They don't want to play anymore because it's just taking way too damn long getting to what you want to do. At the same time, it's slow enough so that those that want to do other things, who want to level, can level, pace themselves just fine, and not have to worry about getting done so fast that they have to go back and do it again, I guess. At the same time, it does play into, like, the talent tree is coming back. So instead of having like 120 plus talents to fit in there, or even 60 talents to fit in there, if you go the Cataclysm style of 1 every 2 levels, which is interesting also at the same note. You just only need maybe 44-ish, if my math is correct. Because, you know, you don't have to worry about the 7 levels, you get talent blocks. And you don't have to worry about the 9 talents. 9 levels, you start from like 1 to 9. Because every talent point system starts at 10. So yeah, you only ever have to worry about like 44 talent points to have to put in there to fill on the talent tree. Like the Legion weapons. So that talent blocks still change your stuff. While talent trees are just to make your character properly playable. As it always has. And of course, you add 10 levels, that's 54 you need. And again, it also adds more room for more expansions. Yes, because we are 8 expansions in. And if we do squish it down to 60, that gives us 8 more expansions, or up to 8 more expansions. That can happen. Hopefully all stepping in the right directions, like with a few changes and added stuff. But yeah, it adds us room for more expansions without making the leveling so obscene, because you have to go through so many levels. So if I pull that guy, no, yes I do. Okay, looks like I'm doing cooldown time. Yeah, so you don't have so many levels to go. You're not going through like 250 levels just so you can get to max and do raids. But yeah, I think, yeah, if we implement level squish, it definitely would help the longevity of the game, because it does that. What else was there? Something I was about my head as I was talking about that. Shoot. Oh, I forgot. Well, that's just, anyway, as I said, that was just a couple of ideas that I thought I would throw out there, because, yeah, the game is, can't really say precious to me, I think, but that's the only word I can think of course, at this time. Because, yeah. Anyway, please just go ahead and leave comments and discuss with me or something, or even throw other ideas you may have, or tell me how wrong I am, how much of a noob I am, and how much my ideas suck. Believe me, I can take it. I've dealt with it in the game for a long time. Why are you not spawning? I'll try gong. Okay, I think okay. Yeah, so yeah, leave comments, discuss, share this if you think it is good enough points, or share it if you think the points are so idiotic that it's a good laugh. I don't care which, but I just figure I want to get that out there in a medium that, again, may actually help its longevity for ideas over something in the comment section, which so many times I've seen get buried within the matter of minutes and never really see the light of day. But oh, also, might as well promote this at the same time, because it's something that I have been working on with the wife and a friend of mine, who we will be doing it, I promise. And so hopefully look forward for it. As me and him doing something in the game that, in Classic at least, I think is going to be a decent challenge. But on the other one, just kind of join me and the wife as we play the game, as I teach her the ropes, as she gets used to everything about it. And you can enjoy her learning with me. And yeah, feel free to chat with us. We want to respond to people who want to chat with us. That's one of the main reasons we do it, is to hopefully be able to bring entertainment, talk with people, give some things out that I have gotten from other people. But other than that, I think at this point I need to bid adieu, and have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye.